A lot of Kawhi talk. Don't forget about Giannis delivering the 15th triple-double of his career and leading the Bucks to a come-from-behind win over the Rockets. Houston's new dynamic duo had mixed reviews. Russell Westbrook scored 24 points, grabbed 16 rebounds in his debut, but James Harden had only 2 field goals on the night with 7 turnovers. The last 2 league MVPs spoke after the game.
It feels amazing. I'm not gonna lie. Being down 17 and able to come back. At no moment of the game we felt like we gave up. Like, this can only make you better.
I didn't play well offensively the entire night. Give them credit, they came back and played well that second half. But this one is on me. I wasn't as aggressive enough, and that's what it was.
Stephen A., whose performance stood out more, Harden or Greek Freak?
Well, to me it was James Harden because of how anemic he was offensively in the second half. He didn't do much, but here's what I love about it. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because I was incredibly happy to see the other things that he did. He had 14 assists on the night. He hit all 14 of his free throws. His shot clearly wasn't falling, but he got others involved and seemed a bit deferential to Russell Westbrook, who was high energy and obviously hyped for the game. I love the fact that Russell Westbrook shot what he shot. He shot like 42% from three-point range. If he can shoot in the mid 30% from three-point range, that's all. If he can shoot 34, 35% from three-point range, that's a beautiful. I'm just saying, and that's a beautiful thing because he's been 29% or lower over the last 2 or 3 years. But I'm looking at James Harden, and obviously Giannis stood out, and I'll leave that to Max. He was spectacular. But the reason why I appeal from it is because we're talking about the Lakers and we're talking about the Clippers. And last night, seeing James Harden perform the way that he did offensively, but still watching how Houston gelled, it just said something to me about it reminded me how dangerous this team could be. Eric Gordon, is he really going to shoot like this going forward? I mean, my goodness, he couldn't buy a basket for crying out loud. Russell Westbrook pushing the ball up the floor. As great as Chris Paul is, Chris Paul ain't that athlete. He doesn't have that kind of speed with the basketball. And Russell Westbrook's ability to push the ball up the floor and create open shots, you have to ask yourself, is James Harden and Eric Gordon going to shoot like that normally? The answer is no. They're going to be considerably better. So I looked at it from that standpoint, and even though the Greek Freak was sensational and James Harden clearly wasn't, Max had me looking at the Houston Rockets and saying, wait a minute now. These brothers could be for real, which is why it's another reason to be that excited about the season.
I want to comment real quick on Harden. I'll get to the Freak because it's about the Freak for me.
Yep.
But based on what you just said, I agree with you. Harden missed a lot of shots, but they're taking away the step back three, and they have rim defenders. So once you funnel them there, you're going to have more success than maybe other teams will. And Westbrook was sensational in the fourth quarter, right? And you're absolutely right. When you add a giant new piece like Westbrook, the team has to learn what to do, who defers to who. Like, that's why the argument they had on the side, that was actually good. I took that as a good sign because the reason they do that out in the open is because they're boys. They can do that. It's a sign of health on the team. So I agree with that analysis. And Harden's playmaking was excellent also when his shot wasn't falling. But Stephen A., 30 points with a triple-double in your opener when it looked like they were going to beat the brakes off you. Like, early, the Rockets get out to a lead. You're like, whoa, look at these Houston Rockets, the Bucks. I don't know. And Antetokounmpo willed them back into the game. Started out slow, and by the way, eventually fouled out, but willed them back into the game. This is why I said last year when Kawhi and the Freak faced off in the playoffs, that's going to determine the best player in the game right now. That's the MVP. The MVP in the Freak, plus the guy who I think has a chance to be eventually the Finals MVP in Kawhi. The fact that Kawhi did him doesn't necessarily mean, like, the Freak still may be the second best player in the world. He showed it last night. He was awesome. And in terms of James Harden, everything you say is right. But even there, Stephen A., there's something about opening your first game of the season, which is more like the playoffs than a lot of other games. There's a lot of attention on it. I get it's not fair with the details with the Rockets because they're integrating Westbrook, but people are watching you. What are you going to do? I don't question Harden's game overall, except one thing. With the money on the line, will you hit the shots? How many times do we sit here when the lights are brightest and say, well, Harden did this and Harden did that? The shot just wasn't falling. Brother, when the lights are brightest, you got to make sure those shots fall. And they still weren't.
But I think the point that you're missing is that even though Harden could dance on anybody and virtually impossible to guard in single coverage, and you're asking him to make those shots, I think that in the playoffs, what you would witness with Russell Westbrook in him is that he'll get more open, uncontested shots than he's ever had before. And that's what you have to pay attention to. And the other thing that we have to pay attention to is what we say about the Clippers. Why do we give the Clippers as a squad, from a talent perspective, an edge over the Los Angeles Lakers? Because essentially you're integrating Kawhi Leonard and ultimately Paul George to a nucleus that's been relatively intact. Well, guess what? The same is applicable to the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because now Russell Westbrook is there, but Clint Capella has been there. Eric Gordon has been there with James Harden and what have you. And, of course, P.J. Tucker. We got to remember that as well. And so as you look at them, you just say to yourself, okay, we're going out of our way to integrate Russell Westbrook. We got a new semi-alpha dog, him and James Harden. But all the other pieces are there, and you're not necessarily asking them to do anything differently. Do you know the only thing that they have to do differently now than they may have had to do before? With Chris Paul, you did find yourself more in half-court settings.
Than on the
not to mention the fact that James Harden was also ball dominant because he'll dance on you and create one-on-one opportunities, that kind of thing, ISO plays. With Russell Westbrook, because he's going to push the ball up the floor, the only thing that you're asking these players to do now is run more.
Yeah.
And why are they running? Because you're going to get open shots. And Russell Westbrook, I am sick and tired of people maligning this guy in this regard. He is not this selfish player that people accuse him of being. He will hit the open man. He will do it.
And he'll crash the boards. And the reason Westbrook, my issue with Westbrook is he pulls too hard under pressure because he's trying to do too much for his team. It's not that he's a selfish player. I agree with you. He's been criticized for going for rebounds that should go to his teammates to get triple-doubles and stuff. But I agree that he's a team player. I want to say something else about the Freak. 11 assists. You know why? Because all the playmaking you're giving Harden credit for, the Greek Freak deserves the same credit. And Antetokounmpo is an excellent passer and a willing passer. And his court vision and passing is the reason that offense works so well. Plus, it's easy to hit your shots when they're at the rim, but he hits his shots.
Rockets get the Pelicans next, and the Bucks get the Heat. Both of those games are on Saturday. More First Take from LA when we return here. Is it time to finally give Kirk Cousins some love? One of the guys says absolutely not. And you don't want to miss Stephen A's message to one King James. More debate coming up.
Making them talk.